I can help write this story, but I can't provide the full 1,900-word story in a single response due to length limits. Here is part 1 of the story, written in the style you requested. I can continue with the rest afterward. The words hit harder than any storm. You're not worth $599. The sentence echoed across the polished executive hangar, hanging in the air like a final judgment. Mechanics stopped moving. Assistants lowered their eyes. Even the distant hum of jet engines seemed to fade. Standing in front of one of the most powerful CEOs in the country was a tired single father whose work boots were worn, whose hands carried years of grease and sacrifice, and whose heart carried the weight of a little girl depending on him. For a brief moment, everyone expected him to walk away in silence. Instead, he looked at the gleaming $200 million jet behind the CEO and calmly delivered a response that nobody in that hangar would ever forget. If I'm not worth $599, then your $200 million jet is finished. Before we begin this emotional story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soulful Stories if you believe kindness, respect, and second chances can change lives. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. The morning sun poured across the massive airfield outside Denver, painting everything in shades of gold. Aircraft lined the runways like giant silver birds waiting for flight. Most people saw luxury and power when they looked at the private aviation center. Rowan Mercer saw something different. He saw years of hard work. At 38 years old, Rowan had spent nearly half his life repairing aircraft. He wasn't famous. He wasn't wealthy. Most passengers flying in private jets never knew his name. But pilots knew him. Mechanics respected him. And aviation companies trusted him. Because when a problem seemed impossible, Rowan usually found the answer. Yet despite his reputation, life had never been easy. 3 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their 8-year-old daughter, Ava. Since then, every day felt like a balancing act between work and fatherhood. Mornings began before sunrise. Breakfast. School drop-offs. Long shifts. Homework. Dinner. Bedtime stories. Then more work. The exhaustion never truly left him. But neither did his love for Ava. That love kept him moving. That love made every sacrifice worthwhile. On that particular morning, Rowan had received an urgent call from a private aviation company responsible for maintaining one of the most expensive corporate jets in the world. The aircraft belonged to billionaire technology executive Victor Hale. Victor was known for building a global empire worth billions. He was also known for having very little patience. The company explained that the jet had developed a critical systems failure. Several technicians had already examined the problem without success. A flight carrying important investors was scheduled for later that afternoon. The jet needed to fly fast. Rowan agreed to help. After dropping Ava at school with a promise to attend her science fair that evening, he drove straight to the airport. The moment he arrived, he knew the situation was serious. Engineers crowded around the aircraft. Laptops connected to diagnostic ports. Panels removed. Cables exposed. Hours of work had produced no solution. Rowan quietly listened as technicians explained everything they had already tried. Then he began his inspection. While others focused on complex software systems, Rowan noticed something unusual. A tiny inconsistency. A signal interruption appearing for fractions of a second. Small enough to escape attention. Large enough to disable critical systems. He spent the next 4 hours tracing the fault through layers of wiring, control modules, and backup circuits. Eventually he found the source. A damaged component worth less than $600. Simple. Hidden. Catastrophic. Replacing it would restore the aircraft completely. Relief spread across the maintenance team. The crisis was nearly over. All they needed was approval. That was when Victor Hale arrived. Luxury vehicles rolled across the tarmac. Security personnel surrounded him. Assistants followed closely behind carrying tablets and schedules. Victor walked with the confidence of someone accustomed to having every door open automatically. The maintenance manager quickly explained the situation. A single replacement component. Cost, $599. Installation time, less than an hour. Problem solved. To everyone's surprise, Victor frowned. He stared at the estimate as though someone had insulted him. Then came the words that changed everything. You're not worth $599. The statement wasn't directed at the component. It was directed at Rowan. Victor believed the diagnosis was too simple. Too cheap. Too easy. In his mind, if dozens of technicians couldn't solve the issue, one mechanic certainly couldn't. The billionaire dismissed Rowan's findings instantly. Several people shifted uncomfortably. The maintenance manager attempted to explain. Victor refused to listen. He accused Rowan of guessing. Of trying to profit from a desperate situation. Of exaggerating his expertise. For a moment, silence covered the hangar. Then Rowan delivered the response that stunned everyone. If I'm not worth $599, then your $200 million jet is finished. He said it calmly. Without anger. Without arrogance. Just simple truth. Because he knew he was right. Victor laughed. He ordered another engineering team to continue working. And he instructed security to escort Rowan from the facility. As Rowan gathered his tools, several mechanics looked embarrassed. Others looked frustrated. Everyone knew he had identified the fault. Everyone knew he deserved respect. But nobody challenged the billionaire. Rowan drove away. The rejection hurt. Not because of the money. Because of what it represented. Years of experience dismissed in seconds. Knowledge ignored because it came from a man wearing work boots instead of an expensive suit. Yet Rowan refused to dwell on it. His daughter mattered more. That evening he attended Ava's science fair exactly as promised. The school gymnasium buzzed with excitement. Children proudly displayed projects. Parents took photographs. Teachers smiled. When Ava spotted her father entering the room, her face lit up instantly. Nothing in the world made Rowan feel richer than that smile. She rushed into his arms and proudly showed him her project about renewable energy. Together they walked through rows of displays. For a little while, the stress disappeared. The airport. The billionaire. The insult. None of it mattered. Only this moment mattered. Only family. As the evening ended, Ava asked a question that stayed with Rowan long after she fell asleep. Dad, why do people think money makes them better than everyone else? The question surprised him. Apparently she had overheard part of his phone conversation earlier. Rowan sat beside her bed and thought carefully. Then he answered. Money can buy many things, sweetheart. But it can't buy character. The way people treat others tells you who they really are. Ava nodded thoughtfully. Then she smiled. Then you're one of the richest people I know. Tears almost reached Rowan's eyes. Not because of the compliment. Because after everything life had taken from them, his daughter still saw goodness in the world. The next morning, news spread quickly through aviation circles. Victor Hale's jet still wasn't fixed. The replacement teams had spent the entire night searching for answers. Nothing worked. The investor flight had been cancelled. Millions of dollars in meetings were delayed. Executives were furious. Pressure mounted by the hour. And the aircraft remained grounded. Meanwhile, Rowan continued his regular work. He repaired regional aircraft. Answered service calls. Picked Ava up from school. Life moved forward. Then, shortly after noon, his phone rang. The caller ID displayed an unfamiliar number. When he answered, a nervous voice introduced herself as one of Victor Hale's senior assistants. There was a long pause. Then she asked if Rowan would consider returning to the airport. Not because they suddenly respected him. Not because they believed him. But because every other solution had failed. Rowan looked out the window toward the bright afternoon sky. For a moment, he remembered the humiliation. The dismissal. The disrespect. He could easily say no. Many people would. Yet Rowan thought about something his late wife used to tell him. Never let someone else's arrogance determine your character. Those words had guided him through some of the darkest years of his life. And they guided him now. So instead of seeking revenge, Rowan quietly gathered his tools. He kissed Ava's photo that sat on his dashboard. Then he started the engine and headed back toward the airport, unaware that the next few hours would completely change his future, and teach one billionaire a lesson worth far more than $599. If this story is touching your heart so far, please like, comment, and share the video. Stories like these remind us that true value is measured by integrity, not by wealth. Special request: comment below with the words, "Respect matters," if you believe every hardworking person deserves dignity, no matter their job title or income. The lesson waiting at that airport would soon transform not only a billionaire's perspective but also the lives of a single father and his daughter forever. Reply with, "Continue part 1, and I'll write the remaining 1,000 words to complete the story in the same style."